Hey guys, it's Christina and Parker, and we are two dog trainers, and we've started this YouTube channel kind of recently. So we don't have like an official intro yet, but we're working on it.
You'll get to know us.
Yeah. So my topic for today, drum roll, please. It is nurture versus nature.
Yes.
Do genetics matter? Or is it all in how you raise them? So that is our topic today because it's a big debate in the dog world. Well, I wouldn't say it's a big debate. I think it's just the public thinks it's all in how you raise them. And the trainers know that that's not true.
Yes, I think it can be a debate, but a debate between the owners and the trainers.
Yeah.
Because owners will think like it's all my fault. I've created this dog that wants to do things, and there's a part of that that's true. Yeah. But the trainers, I think, rally behind the fact that genetics matter.
Yeah. So to me, it's both. So it's not just how you raise the dog. It's not just the genetics of the dog. There is a combination that is present for both to create issues. So if we talk about dogs that have, say they have their dog aggressive, and that could be for a whole bunch of reasons that they could be dog aggressive, so I won't really get into that, but there are breeds like, let's say, pit bulls.
You can't say that.
Pit bulls.
You can't say that.
Sue me, but it's the truth. They tend to have a lot more dog aggression. And
so they were bred for.
Yeah, and it's got nothing to do with the owner doing a crappy job raising them.
So
yeah, and same with like German Shepherds, like especially male German Shepherds, they don't get along with a lot of other male dogs very well. They're very, they want to be dominant, they want to be the leader.
Challenging.
So they tend to be very selective when it comes to getting along with other dogs.
Which makes sense.
It's
genetically.
Genetics, yeah.
Genetically, that makes sense. If you have two males, let's say they're in a pack, two males are going to have to figure out the hierarchy of who's leading. The problem is that 90% of dogs that are owned in households aren't part of a pack. So they try to just like quickly establish that with new dogs that they meet. Yeah. And then you introduce dogs that are unsocialized, dogs that don't know how to behave, then fights start. So yeah, so I'm not trying to like pick on pit bulls. I'm just using it as an example. And to me, it's like, it's not whether it's a good dog or a bad dog. To me, that's not even, it's just they exhibit these behaviors typically, and they maybe don't exhibit these behaviors typically. It's not about what makes you a good or a bad dog. Like, dogs are dogs. Dogs have different purposes that they were bred for. So if we get into for people that think it's all in how you raise them, then why do we see German Shepherds, Malinois, Dutch Shepherds, why are they the dogs that are like police canines? Right. And I don't mean drug dogs. I'm talking about apprehending people. Right. Used for bite work. How come we don't see golden retrievers used for bite work if genetics doesn't matter? If it's all about how you raise them, then we should be able to raise any dog to do anything. Yeah. Which there are exceptions. I'm sure there's a golden retriever out there that's doing bite work.
Yeah, there's unicorns. There's unicorns
I'm
everywhere.
sure is this straight? I'm sure there's dogs that are, there's exceptions, but generally speaking, the majority of dogs generally gravitate towards what their genetics have predisposed them to be good at. So German Shepherds are good at protection, Pit Bulls are good at fighting. So that's their genetic response. When pressured, when in a stressful situation, when challenged, their DNA, it's like their ancestors.
Their instinct comes out.
Yeah, I'm telling them, fight, because that's what they're good at. And a golden retriever's response won't be the same always. Like, of course there will be some, but it won't always be the same response. Yeah. But it does matter how they were raised. Yeah. So again, it's both. Yeah. So you have a pit bull that could be raised in a family that has a lot of structure, a lot of rules, although its genetic predisposition will be towards fighting, the pit bull could very well grow up and never get in a fight. Not that it won't try, or that it might not be like tempted in that direction, but it could live a whole life without getting in a fight, which exists. There's tons of pit bulls across the country that have never fought and have no intention of fighting because of the nature, right? The family environment that they grew up in. But then there's also
the nurture.
Yes, sorry, the nurture of the environment that they grew up in. But then there's also golden retrievers out there that have had instances where they were attacked, and so their nurture maybe
they're fear aggressive.
Right. Their nurture maybe gears them a little bit more towards fighting, and so now you have a golden retriever that fights.
Right.
It's not always just one or the other, but I think as people we want it to be. It's easier for us to understand if I can say all this or all that.
And another, I guess, good point to bring up, or I guess just another supporting example is, so I think about German short-haired pointers, and they've been bred to, when they smell or sense that there's a bird in the brush, or they just see a bird, like they literally become still and they point. And why does no other dog do that?
Training.
Yes, it's instinct.
Zero training.
It's an instinct to do that. People don't even have to train them to do that. So when we talk about, everything has to do with how you raise them. No, there is a level of just instinct that has been bred into a dog to fulfill a purpose for what the breed was created for.
And I think these discussions ultimately are important because, first of all, people beat themselves up over things that their dog is genetically predisposed to do. And people buy dogs thinking that it only matters how I raise it. And then they find themselves in situations where their dog attacked their other dog, their two dogs aren't getting along, and their understanding of why and what they can do to change that is so skewed because they either think, why is my dog doing this? I raised it perfectly. And then that typically leads to blaming. So like, what have I done wrong? What can I change? And how can I fix my dog? So that because if it's all about how I raise it, then I just need to change things, and my dog aggressive dog will no longer want to be dog aggressive, and he'll just be perfect, which just doesn't exist if with the right conditions. The dog can most commonly, dog aggressive dogs, it's just behavior that's managed for the rest of the dog's life. It's not fixed, it doesn't go away, just managed. So it's important to recognize that yes, it matters how you raise the dog, but it also matters the genetics of the dog, the breed that you have, what they were bred for, and really what their ancestors are telling them to do, what their DNA is telling them to do.
And I think that's good for people to think about. So when you want to get a dog and you're thinking, oh, I want to get a family dog, you know what? I think a Tibetan Mastiff would be a great dog for my family. Because if I raise him right, it doesn't, he'll be great.
Right.
Which is totally a myth. Your Tibetan Mastiff is going to have a lot of, Tibetan Mastiffs they have a lot of aggression. They're extremely protective, and they're not family dogs. They're not pets. Typically. They are not pets at all.
Now, for all the people out there that have Tibetan Mastiffs that are wonderful in their family, again, that's not what this is about. There are people out there that have that exists. This is the majority. Yeah, this is the general overview. The Tibetan Mastiff is not meant to be a family dog. Right.
So I think that could be helpful to people if they are thinking, I can get, whatever breed.
It's all about how I raise it.
And I raise it right and it'll be fine. So you should really think about what purpose you want the dog to fulfill. So if you want it to be maybe you want to get a therapy dog. So you should look at breeds that tend to be very forgiving, very tolerant, maybe something that's not overprotective, because you're going to have the dog around children, and children are, there's going to be a bunch of new people, children are unpredictable, children might have disabilities.
Right.
You're not going to want to get a dog that's too sharp on the protective scale, and definitely not something that's irritable.
Short fuse, quick to snap, or irritable. That that's not going to be the dog you want.
Yeah.
And I think that if you're getting if you want to get those other breeds that have some of those risks involved, you can do that. Just be honest with yourself about being willing to accept that that could be a possibility in the future. I think we see a lot of people that are just like torn apart and torn up that their pit bull wants to fight the other dog in their house, as if it's never been something that they've thought could be a possibility.
Yeah.
I think that lack of preparation makes it really hard for those people to accept that. And when we tell them, hey, your dogs may never be friends, they can coexist, and we can manage that behavior, but they may never be best buddies, it's hard for them because they've expected that they're going to be best buddies. So if you get those dogs for your family, fine, that's great. Just be honest with yourself and be prepared for that it could show up later. Not that it will, but it could. And if it does, you're prepared for that because you knew what kind of dog you got.
Yeah, and the same thing, like we see a lot of German Shepherd owners that have a German Shepherd, and he barks when people come to the door, and
or he's a little aloof.
He's aloof. He's like, I don't want strangers to touch me, and they're torn up about it.
They're so upset.
They're so upset that their German Shepherd's doing this. Now there is a level of, the dog doesn't need to go berserk at the door. There needs to be control, and there needs to be a way to tell him, all right, that's enough, knock it off. But they are torn up by this behavior and surprised, like as if they weren't aware of the German Shepherd's breed tendencies to be protected.
Because they weren't.
Yeah.
Because they had no idea.
Because of this idea that it's all in how you raise them.
Right.
Which again is not true.
Yeah.
It's not all in how you raise them. It's 50-50. I would say for now, that's what I would call it with what we know. 50-50.
Because I think there's so many examples of nature being more impactful, so many examples of nurture being more impactful. I don't know that there's any kind of argument that one is more dominating of the other. Because there's just so many instances where both are very controlling or both play a role in how the dog turns out. So a lot of it has to do with expectations. They're disappointed because they expect it differently, but the dog doesn't care.
Yeah.
The dog does not care. The dog is going to do what it's predisposed to do. So you get a dog that is predisposed to do something like a German Shepherd, being naturally a little bit suspicious and aloof of strangers because they were bred for protection. And then on top of that, you then have a family who is new to dog ownership and doesn't understand the importance of socializing, doesn't understand the importance of training and control. And it's a perfect storm for that dog to be potentially very dangerous.
Yeah.
So it's just sad. It's sad to see.
Yeah.
What?
I also feel as though there's a lot of misinformation about breeds online.
Oh yeah.
So I made a German Shepherd video that was giving my honest breed overview of the German Shepherd.
Yeah.
And
how it really,
and we've owned several German Shepherds, and we've been involved in working at a protection dog facility that bred and raised, trained, sold German Shepherds. We've trained lots of German Shepherds as pet dog trainers. We're very familiar. So I gave my breed overview because I felt like when I do a Google review and I try to find information about German Shepherds, there is not a lot of quality information about them. It will say things like, if you just exercise them enough, things like make sure you have a big backyard to let them run. They want to be really active, and basically like you're good. If you exercise them, they will be a great companion. And I don't think that's true, because I find that German Shepherds are very testy. They really need a leader. They need boundaries. They need to be trained. And being trained is different than being exercised. That's like mental stimulation, and giving them places where you can say, stop doing that, do this instead. The German Shepherd needs that. So I felt like there was a lot of poor information on German Shepherds. So that exists for other breeds as well. I've seen a Rottweiler, it was like a meme well, not a meme, it was like this digital little graphic made on Instagram saying that Rottweilers are actually, what was it? Rottweilers have an extreme level of confidence that makes them incapable of being aggressive. Something to the extent of that. It was like compatible with.
Oh, I think I remember you showing me that.
It was total
like,
BS.
That's basically what, yeah.
Which is like, if you don't have to be afraid
So
to be aggressive. You can be, there are a lot of, especially Rottweilers, that can confidently be very aggressive.
Yeah.
They don't have to be afraid.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was it. They lack fear, so they won't be aggressive.
Right. They're confident enough. They're not fearful.
Like,
so they're not gonna. That's like a whole nother video. The concept of like aggression existing in instances other than being afraid.
Oh yeah.
There's such a misconception about dogs being aggressive simply because only because they're afraid.
Yeah.
Like, it's impossible that a dog is aggressive for other reasons.
Yeah.
And anyways, but
yeah, so that's totally untrue because I've met them.
Oh gosh.
And they will very confidently.
Yeah.
Very confidently.
Very happily would bite you.
We recently had one that would jump on you and try to pin you.
Yeah.
And he was not afraid.
There's no fear there.
No fear, zero fear.
A lot of dominance.
Nothing bad has ever happened to him in his life. He's never been abused. He's never been any of that.
It's a great family.
Yeah, wonderful family. Got him from a breeder, and the breeder was not Craigslist breeding. It was some pretty official breeding, but Rottweilers are, they're unique. You should know what you're doing if you get a big male, fully intact, Rottweiler. You should know what you're doing.
He was a great dog.
Yeah.
He was a great dog. He was just happy to fight.
Yeah.
And if you pushed him and if you pushed his buttons or tried to give him discipline in ways that he hadn't been used to or hadn't experienced yet, he would try to bite you. He was very comfortable doing
Don't touch my collars. I don't want you to touch my collars. I'm done with you touching my collars. I'm going to bite you now.
Yeah.
He was not afraid.
Right.
So.
How did we get into him? What were we talking about?
I brought up the Rottweiler graphic that I saw.
Oh yes.
And it was just saying that Rottweilers are incapable of showing aggression because they lack fear.
Yeah, and we were talking about misinformation online.
Yeah.
So please do not. Oh gosh.
Go talk to a breeder,
Memes.
like a reputable breeder,
or a trainer,
an
experienced trainer. Not we say this as we're like doing and posting this online, but not a YouTube trainer, not an online trainer. Like, make sure that they have experience with dogs, and that there's like proof of that they have before and after videos, because people will say things that will that can convince you that they know what they're talking about, and they may, but they also may not. And a lot of those people tend to dwell online because it's easy to do that. You get called out in person, then it's a little harder to fabricate your credentials. But yeah, there's so much misinformation online about dog breeds and what's real. So find a good breeder and talk to the breeder. If they're good, they'll know the breed well enough. If you're saying, hey, I want to get this massive male Rottweiler for my family of 6, and they're all under 15 years old, hopefully the breeder will at least let you know about the potential issues in the future.
And I think my concern is more, you could have a family of 6 and do fine as long as you're like experienced with dogs like that. So I'm not saying that there's lots of Rottweilers I've met that are family dogs and they're great, but the owners have a handle on the dog. They're not first-time dog owners. They understand the breed that they got. They were ready for the breed they got. They trained the dog. There was expectations and boundaries. So you can make it work. Just don't expect a golden retriever out of a Rottweiler. You know what I mean? And don't say that goes for any of these protective breeds. If you're gonna get a protective breed because you're like, I want him to protect me, and then he actually is protective, don't be upset.
Right.
So that's gonna happen. He's not gonna know when if he hasn't met many people, not been well socialized, and then you decide to throw Thanksgiving dinner one year and he hasn't even been out of the house hardly.
Right.
He's gonna probably not
go crazy.
Yeah, he's probably gonna growl at people.
That's a whole nother video too.
That's a whole
protection versus like defensiveness.
Oh yeah.
And fear.
But yeah, so just don't be surprised. But believe the breed stereotypes. You really should.
Yeah.
Because they are true.
Oh man.
People
That's
like
so
to say
true.
they're not true. Don't stereotype.
We don't like to stereotype.
No, they're true because they were bred for that
Yeah.
purpose. So they're true, and you see it time and time again.
And the stereotypes, typically, they exist because of experience.
Yeah.
They exist because people's experience with that breed
Has
has
been the
created this stereotype for that breed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I want to say again, I'm not bagging on pit bulls at all.
Yeah.
Pit bulls are great dogs.
Yeah.
They tend to have higher levels of dog aggression because they were dog fighting dogs.
It doesn't have to be a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing.
Yeah, it's just
they're great. They tend to be really good with people.
Yeah, you just have to manage it.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to be the expectations again. Just be prepared for that.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be a bad thing. Just be prepared for it, and when it happens, learn to manage it. Have realistic expectations about what living with that animal is going to be like if you have a family or if you have other dogs. It doesn't have to be this horrible thing. Dog training doesn't exist because there are horrible dogs. Dog training is just about creating structure and helping dogs coexist. So, yeah. Nature versus nurture. It's not one, it's both.
It's both.
And just research the breed and be prepared for those breed stereotypes to show themselves potentially later in the dog's life. And when it happens, face it head on and go find a trainer. You can even prepare for it beforehand. If you have a dog that's like that, get it trained young so that there's structure early.
Yeah, that's what we're doing with ours.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Okay, well thank you guys for watching. That is our video on nature versus nurture. If this helped any of you, please like and subscribe and give it a thumbs up, and we'll make more videos like this in the future.
See ya.
Thanks for watching.